Welcome to Puck Talk CS. I'm Chives, alongside the main man, Steve-O. Not the easiest week for either of us, but for the New York Rangers, 5 wins in a row since that Connor Mackey fight. They beat the Avalanche, Tampa Bay. Lightning. Snow day here, having some pancakes. And on top of that, they just defeated the Calgary Flames. I'm all over the place right now. Steve-O, how we doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Chives. Listen, those teams you just rounded off, that is no small feat right there. So I'm doing great. I'll give you the opportunity to ask you how you're doing, and we'll talk some puck.
Yeah, well, last week, actually, I announced yesterday on the X app that was it. Time's done at the Hockey News. It was amazing. Shout out Mike Tracos, Johnny Lazarus for that opportunity. I loved it traveling into the city. It was my first real world experience, and I don't think it's something I won't take anything away from wherever I end up next. Hopefully, outside of doing Puck Talk and doing everything with our socials and outreach here on Puck Talk, I'm hoping I keep my foot in the door and work somewhere else. We'll see. The opportunities are open. With that, those connections brought on, and we'll bring on a lot of voices onto our podcast. And it was, again, great experience being able to meet so many of the players, having connections with guys like Kakko, Miller, Lindgren, Cuylle, Jimmy Vesey. Like, I was able to build some professional bonds there. And outside of the journalists, the players, Sam Rosen was awesome to talk to and bounce things off of. Being at the Garden every night was awesome, especially at the peak in their season. So, it was a great experience at the Hockey News moving forward from that. And I think it's something that things went well, and I'm excited to see what the future holds. With that, Steve-O, no more locker room inside from the Chives, man. But I'll still be obviously on the mic here with you. So, and obviously, I don't think your thoughts have been too far off on the season without that access. So I'm ready to chop it up about this team.
Yeah, before we chop it up on this snow day, I do gotta say, as one of your top dogs and your partner here on the show for 8 years now. No, nine. Wow, 9 years. I've seen the work that you've done the over the course of the season, and I gotta say that as your partner, I'm very proud of you. I know the work that you've put in, and keep the head up. I think you've done great voice, and you've established a strong voice, your time there around this team. So if any of our listeners haven't gotten the opportunity to check out Chives' work over there, I mean, it's fantastic. He's incredible. So the future is definitely bright for you, my man.
Listen, Steve-O, my man, I might have to have Aunt Mimi whip up one of these sweatshirts for you after that. We were just talking about it before we hopped on. My aunt, we went to the 18 Winter Classic. So she was in fashion forever. Brought me to my first Ranger game in I think like November 2013. So the year they went to the Cup. Derek Stepan hat trick. Didn't throw my hat. I was too nervous, but anyway, she made these for my brother and I. Might have to get Steve-O one of these after such high compliments. I appreciate it, man, though. Honestly, I think having that support's meant a lot from not only people that are close, my partner in crime on the show. So and I think obviously with things here, we're ready to keep chugging along, man. It is the height of the season.
It is the height of the season, so let's jump right in here. Let's talk some puck. Coming fresh off a 2-0 win last night against a Calgary Flame team coming in. Now, you mentioned the teams that we beat going up against Colorado. These are all no small feats. And I'll say this about Calgary, we cannot forget that this was a team coming in. They won their last 4 games. They were coming in red hot. Jacob Markstrom has been pretty good. He's turned it around completely from his start of the year. So this one wasn't going to be an easy one, but this was exactly the game that we needed, especially Chives from Igor Shesterkin.
Yeah, listen, he's 1A. He is 1A. That was never a doubt about it. The question was, how long is it going to take him to get that under him? And some Valley, I mean, listen, we always talk about Valley on here. He's the man, right? He's the man around Ranger Town. He just has this Walter Cronkite-like grip on, like, what he speaks is like prophetic, and he never misses. he mentioned all it takes sometimes is one save for a goaltender to hear the crowd behind Igor. I mean, that's huge. And I think at the end of the day, he needed that. The team needed that. A gutsy win, a shutout. That's a confidence thing. He hasn't shut out a team since last season. He needed it. And he is the 1A. He's the guy you want to be able to ride in the postseason. And listen, you have a perfectly capable 1B. But obviously, you want Igor in a good spot, especially after that game against Chicago. 3 goals. I know there were some excuses on the last goal in the defense against the worst team in the NHL. But listen, I was looking back. You throw up some highlights, do yourself a favor, open up YouTube and watch some of his playoff performances in 2022, even last postseason in the games they'd won. He was making saves no matter what. Tip-ins, breakaways, 2-on-1s. Those are what he's given up this year in bunches. So for him to get that victory is huge, Steve-O.
Yeah, and I will say that first of all, we came out and we said quick is one, quick is one. In hindsight, Igor, of course, he's number one. But, when we say starter one, we obviously knew at that time. And, I still don't think the jury's out because we saw this with Igor a month ago. He had that one good game. I think it was Boston. And then, the next 4 games after that, he was not efficient at all. So the one thing that I want to see from him is we need to keep it going. Now, in this game in particular, I'll focus in for a second for Calgary. Of course, he obviously looked much better. But the Rangers defensively, and I'm talking whole squad, they were better with puck control in the defensive zone, and they didn't really give up good shooting lanes. They provided Igor with a strong opportunity to see the puck, which I thought was key. You could argue that in past games before the All-Star break, Igor wasn't seeing the puck clearly. Which I think, was obviously a big key defensively for the Rangers. But I think Igor's at his best when he could see the puck. And I think when his lane gets disrupted, then he can't see the puck. And of course, we know Igor is not good with rebounds. He might make a save, but then obviously that's a weak element to his game. But obviously there was clean reads last night. And listen, he made the saves when they needed it. He made that high glove save in the third period, and of course, he put the team on his back last night, 1-0. And this, Chives, is a statement win. Anytime you get a shutout in the National Hockey League, that is a statement win. So I like the way the team is playing as of right now. It's very promising to me that this team is now on a win streak against high quality teams, minus Chicago. But I don't think they're playing their best hockey, but they're still finding ways to win. And for me, that is very promising with the direction this team is headed.
It's a blessing and a curse, though. I mean, Mika Zibanejad finally scored a Mika Zibanejad goal against Chicago. And I think a lot of people, when they started digging around with the math there, it was like, man, how many shots on goal haven't gone in for Mika? Where's that power play one-timer? It's his most lethal asset. And I think part of it, too, with a player like Mika, and we could start to, if we're looking at individuals here, it's another guy that you just had to get going against Chicago. Igor had to get going against Calgary, and they did so in a timely fashion, but you need that. I love the way Panarin got into it last night. I love the way Jimmy Vesey scored the empty netter. Actually 2 players statement. We've talked about one of them. I think I wrote until I was blue in the face about number 24. Will Cuylle, Kaapo Kakko connect on a dirty, greasy goal that's not showing up in a highlight reel, but it comes up big, and it's something they're going to need from those 2 down the stretch, barring they're still New York Rangers in a month before the trade, actually a few weeks trade deadline. Steve-O, Will Cuylle, we've talked about him a lot, but whether it was training camp, scoring a few goals early in the year, his grit, his physicality, he's on pace to break the rookie hits record for the original 6 New York Rangers. What were your takeaways from him last night, that goal? I mean, tell me what are your thoughts on 50?
Yeah, obviously his good year continues. He really has had a good year, and we didn't really know what the expectation was going to be with him.
Yeah.
When obviously coming out of camp, he makes the team. It's like, all right, he's going to prove it. Let's see. We really didn't know, and honestly, I wasn't expecting his his performance to play up to part of this. And it's
Hmm.
not like he's coming out there and he's scoring 10, 15 goals. Again, it's his physicality. It's really his size, the element that he brings that, again, with the stats that he has, with hits, I mean, this year I think has been an incredible year from him. And you can't ignore Kaapo Kakko on that play. I thought because I kind of wanted to, would be my next point, is to bring him up, into his pairing, how we like him, because it kind of seems with Kakko, his spot and role on this team, or not his role, his spot is it's uncertain. We put him on the
Yeah.
first line, it doesn't work out. We put him, so where does he fit in? And last night I thought he played pretty well, where he slotted. So I want to jump in and get your thoughts on that. And I do have a point on you mentioned Zibanejad, but I want to get your opinion on that first.
Well, listen, you know me. I'm a Kaapo Kakko guy, Steve-O. You know that. Yeah.
I know that.
Yeah, I'm a Kaapo Kakko guy. So, listen, I love that he creates the play. I think something my brother and I were watching the game, Chicago, maybe Chicago. He's just like the lovable, for lack of better terms. I'd actually, you know what? I'm not even going to say the second word, but he's lovable in the sense that you're just rooting for him, right? Like he's not hitting the production and whatever. And like you said, experimented on the first line. I think he has the capability to be a supporting player in that role. But with that said, he played like 20 games up there earlier in the year, didn't work out, didn't look good, looked better when he came off of the injury. They started him, thrust him in that position right away. Ever since, now he's on the third line. Johnny B, Will Cuylle, they're clicking. And Will Cuylle said it to Michelle Gingras at the intermission. They're a line that knows their role, and they're trying to just work hard every shift. I love the way he created on that play, and I love the way he uses his frame. He has a nice shot. Actually, I talked to Kakko last week, one-on-one. One thing he said, he wants to utilize his shot more. And I think that's something that we saw when he was in his juniors, going on a tear for TPS in Finland. He set a record there with goals scored at his age with 22, back in 2018, 2019. So, yeah, I think he's a player that has the skill, has the assets. I love the way he plays the game. I love the way he's plays the game on that third line. I'm I'm hoping that gels more because I've also been a big proponent, Steve-O, of seeing what some of the guys within the system can do before you go and trade 4 assets for Elias Lindholm. And I know there's the whole Dolan thing. We talked about that last week, with the first round pick. You're seeing how Gabe Perreault's playing. So that also, I think, brings into the equation, like, are you going to trade that when you could have a guy slide to you like Perreault at the 23rd overall pick? Steve-O, I want to know your thoughts about promoting within the system because we brought up Cuylle. Kakko's a second overall pick. Johnny Brodzinski was brought up to fill the void for Kakko and is now filling the void for Filipino on LTIR. On top of that, the New York Rangers this week kind of boldly brought up Adam Edstrom and Matt Rempe. I didn't think Edstrom looked bad. I thought his debut was definitely a better game against the Flyers a few months back. But what are your thoughts about promoting within the system?
Yeah, this is definitely an interesting point here to monitor for the rest of the season. And I do have some questions that are interesting. But first of all, I wanted to mention that you cannot ignore Brosniski's playing a defensive end that
Mm-hmm.
led to that Cooley goal. So that was key. I think, again, this third line was buzzing, looked good last night. But in terms of your question, bringing up guys with this team, obviously, I think Ekstrom only played like 10 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
maybe not even 10 minutes. But yeah, it didn't look bad. I question, the whole thing with Othman was so weird, bringing him up only for a few games. So again, I would have put forth a different perspective here on some of these like recent call-ups. But the Othman thing just kind of throwing me for a loop. Are they doing the same thing here? Are we just trying to condition guys and get them experience and bring them down? I don't see, the answer. I think the answer eventually is going to be an acquisition.
Yeah.
At the trade deadline in terms of postseason. So I don't think any of these call ups are long term answers. Or even when I say long term answers, I'm referring to the playoffs. But listen, I'm a fan of it. If this, and I trust Jury, if this is what makes, and I trust our player development as well. If this is what makes our prospects better, getting them experience, and you really typically don't see this in the NHL, bringing guys up, for a few handful of games and then bringing them back down. You don't really see that, So the whole Othman thing kind of put a different perspective on this. And listen, I trust our player development. It's been pretty strong. I'd like to say that, in past years, our player development has been very strong. You've seen it with the likes of Lafreniere, and Kakko and Hedel. So, I'd like to say that we're doing the right thing here, but obviously I'm not expecting any of these guys to get major ice time. So that just confirms the belief that, these might just be short term thing here.
Now, question for you too. It's brought up Lafreniere. I think he was buzzing last night. He's been on an absolute tear the second half. Now, part of that though is not being able to finish. So, where do you sit on that fence? Are you a guy that's like watching these games, throwing shit because Loff isn't scoring, or are you a guy that's looking and saying he's playing amazing? I want to know your thoughts because it really is. There's not a lot of in between. It's like a half glass empty, half glass full conversation.
You know me, Charles. I'm definitely the type to be watching stuff and then start throwing shit when I don't like what I'm seeing. But no, I'm not at that point yet.
Yeah.
Obviously, I do think that we have seen a little bit a struggle here on the power play. We saw the power play units being shuffled around a little bit. We saw Wheeler and Brosnitsky join Kreider and Zibanejad at one point. And
Hmm.
kind of try and mix up the lines between Panarin and Lafreniere. But I'm not frustrated. I think the step that I've seen him take in the beginning half of the year, not to say by any means is it complete and he's done. No, I want to see him continue and progress along that point. But I'm not frustrated in any means by him. I'm more so frustrated by other guys on the team, and sometimes this team is frustrating to watch. Where there's some nights where just nobody could get things going. So I don't want to pinpoint one guy here, but sometimes it is going to be more frustrating. But honestly, I think to this point, I'm a little bit more frustrated with. Hopefully we see Mika, continue it up and rise up. But I would say
Top
I'm a little bit
dogs.
more. Yeah, I would say I'm a little bit more frustrated with guys like Mika and Kreider who have kind of fizzled out. And I think this is the fourth straight episode in a row I'm mentioning this. But when these guys both score, the Rangers are like 30 some and two. So I mean,
Hmm.
we just haven't seen that consistency from the top line, which I think is a big issue. And quite frankly, I think we are going to address that at the trade deadline. I really think you should be watching Frank Vetrano's name here. I think the steam on him is going to pick up. I'm telling you, watch it. He's a perfect complement piece, and I'm just thinking back and I'm like, it excites me. You can just slot him in there with Kreider and Zibanejad, and you'll think of the damage they did in that Pittsburgh series. Oh my goodness!
Hmm.
But again, that's the complement piece we need. And Lafreniere, I think he's played well with Panarin. So again, I wanna keep playing that scenario out for the rest of the year. And again, we can't allow this power play. I would call it a minor struggle. We can't allow this to kind of blow up and get worse here as the season progresses, Chives.
Yeah. Also, you mentioned Frankie Vetrano. Something that was big in that Pittsburgh series too was in a few clutch moments, Gerard Gallant put Tyler Mott up with that line. So, having that versatility, I think actually even in all my pieces with the hockey news, I genuinely not I wouldn't say forgot about Tyler Mott, right? How could you forget about him? But every time I wrote about the trades, it was always, oh, you think Harkins back to Vetrano and Cop. Tyler Mott was right in there. Justin Braun was an important part of that postseason run, too. So they acquired four guys to fill in holes on the team that we didn't even think needed to be filled at that time. And it's the same thing with this team. We're looking, saying, well, you could promote from within, or you could make some trades. And it's funny because the trade scene went pretty quiet after some of those blockbuster moves. I don't think the trade market's great this year at all, right? Like in the summer, there's potential that Connor Hellebuyck could have been a New Jersey Devil. And if that was the case, the Rangers would have been screwed. The Rangers always, right? Like he finds it, not only is Hellebuyck a MVP caliber player this season for the Jets, they kind of signed him and Scheifele by chance. So that was actually something that was on my mind too, was man, if a player like that goes to a rival team, you're in trouble. But it also could be the flip of the coin like a Timo Meyer. Now, the reason I bring those names up is because the Rangers have the Devils. Well, they have the Stadium Series and then New Jersey and then Philadelphia the following weekend. So, Steve-O, with that Stadium Series, it's the first Ranger I was thinking about when I was showing you the patch here. This was right before the rebuild. JT Miller scored that overtime goal on assist from Zook and Shattenkirk. Citi Field, January 1st, 2018. It's a very different team now. You have star players. You have those first, second overall pick guys. You have those depth guys like a Cuylle. You're loaded. Artemi Panarin, first outdoor game as a Ranger. They're 4-0 in their history. Very excited for that. It's at MetLife. Also will be home of the FIFA World Cup. So rep BC, Bergen County. I want to know your thoughts going into that game because it's not only a spectacle and an event at MetLife, right? The home stadium. Let's go Big Blue, but it's also a big game against the Islanders because from this point on, the rest of the season, no game's going to be easy. We saw that last night with Markstrom. He's trying to ball out so he could go to a team like New Jersey. So whether it's players that are playing to get traded, players that are playing to stay, or just teams that are trying to get into the playoffs, everyone's fighting for something, Steve-O.
Spectacle, keyword there. I like that. I like that take.
Mm-hmm.
This is a big game for all the reasons. And not only is it a big game, obviously, because it's an outdoor game, it's a big game because of the implications. And again, I've said this to you multiple times off the air that this date is circled for me because I want to play the Islanders. We haven't gotten anything, from these two teams. And again, we're going to be playing this team a lot down the road, and we're going to be playing the Flyers a lot, and we're going to be playing the Devils a lot, and that's only going to intensify as the season progresses. So we're going to have our hands full here, and I love it. But in terms of the Islanders, I think I just mentioned, actually, before I bring this up, I want to get your opinion quickly. What do you think about the jerseys? There's a lot of steam on this online. I want to get your opinion.
Yeah, I pre-sailed Adam Fox. I thought that was hard. I think the Rangers jerseys are nice. I dig. Devils, I'm all right. They could have had a little more depth to it. Flyers is like classic Flyers. The Isles is the worst. That thing looks like Edmonton's, which I'm not a fan of those. Like, never been a fan of the way Edmonton's approached their jersey the last few years. But yeah, what about you?
I agree with you. I couldn't agree more with you. When I first saw the Islanders one, I was like, what? That's the Islanders one? Is Edmonton playing a game outside? I don't mind Edmonton's jersey. I think for them it's fine. For the Islanders, I didn't like. I wasn't a big fan of. For ours, I thought ours was pretty cool. I thought ours was
Boston.
pretty sick. I will have to say, our previous years, outdoor jerseys, I think went harder than this year's. Not to say that I don't like it. I do. But I think when you look at, the last 3 outdoor games we played, I think all those jerseys beat this one. I don't know if you agree with that.
I think they should be using the 2018 as the third jersey. I think they were that good, man.
Oh my God! If I had that one behind me, oh my goodness, that would be awesome. But in terms of the aspect of the game, listen, I just mentioned, I don't want to call our power play stale, if you would want to call it that. But listen, there's no doubt that let's take the other night, for example, the Blackhawks, Chives. I think we went 0 for 3. I mean, against a team that's really struggling. So I think this might be as simple as just trying to overdo it. We know that we have one of the best power plays in the league. I think we dropped. We were one. We had the number 1 power play in the beginning half of the season. We dropped to 2 and 3, and I think we're at 5 or 6 right now. In terms of our power play percentage. So yeah, the statistics show that we're dropping. And of course the performance 0 and 3 against the Blackhawks, I didn't like that, one bit. watching that game. But in order to put it in perspective, Chives, you want to flip over to the other side. The Islanders. The Islanders are struggling right now in
Yeah.
the penalty kill. So I think that matchup plays well for us. If that's something that we could exploit in this matchup, it's going to be pretty good. And not only just this game. I think if we could do it against the Islanders, it's going to put us on another level that, we're capitalizing. There's no doubt that whoever the team, and this goes for the rest of the Metro, the team that is going to stay out of the box and capitalize on opportunities is going to be the team that you see thrive here. And if the Rangers could
Yeah.
do that, not only in this game, but against the Islanders for the rest of the season, and not only them, but New Jersey, Carolina, and Philadelphia, if the Rangers could do that, they will put themselves on another tier and another category in my mind going into the postseason. So that's definitely a matchup to exploit. Quite frankly, the Islanders have not had a good penalty kill in recent years, but recently they are struggling. They have had some injuries, especially on the defensive side, which has hurt them coming into this matchup. But whether it's changes or not, this is definitely a key matchup to harp in here. For this matchup, and of course the rest of the series against the Islanders for the rest of the year, Travis.
Yeah, they play, I believe it's like April. It might be the end of March, but I think it's like April 4th and then April 9th. And this is an Islanders team that's fighting for their life right now to be in the playoffs and be in the playoff picture. They're a wild card fighting team. They're not going to let up on those 2 dates, even if it's the very end of the season. They are a team that Stadium Series, this is the point in the year where they're in the mix, so they're needing every win. And I think it's going to be a very good test on a very big stage for the Rangers. You and I have both been to MetLife before, right? Homegrown. Between the tailgating before, I think how rowdy the fans will be in the building. It's a lot bigger in terms of capacity than Yankee Stadium and Citi Field. It's going to be, I think, an electric environment. Can't wait. Hopefully, I'm trying to see if I could get there, but if that's not the case in terms of TV, everybody's tuning in. President's Day's the next day. It's virtually a holiday, so I think there's going to be a lot of eyes on this game nationally. I don't think the players they're focused on what they're focused on, but as time moves along, you have this matchup mentioned, New Jersey next week, who's going to play you like it is the Super Bowl at MetLife Stadium. You have the Flyers on the following Saturday, who seem to be just about falling off, but they're going to be fighting for their life too. So there's 3 rivals, 3 teams in a week, whether it's a huge national game, a game in the Rock in New Jersey, or a game playing the Philadelphia Flyers, who are looking to scrap out anything. It's going to be tough for the Rangers, but I got faith in their capabilities. And like I said, you'll look at 2018, what the team, how the team played. Henrik, the GOAT, in net for that game. He kept them in it. With that, though, it's a different, it's a completely different look, a completely different team. Dig the jerseys, dig the location of the game, dig that it's against the Islanders. The whole thing, I think, is really special, and I cannot wait. Like, I am super pumped to see what goes down this weekend, because it's a big matchup, Steve-O. So, yeah, I think with that game, I really look forward to it.
And this is, of course, I think when you look at it from the different perspectives, I think both teams do have a different perspective, coming into this game. Obviously,
Yeah.
I think the Islanders, this is a much more important game for the Islanders than it is for the Rangers. I think, obviously there's the aesthetic reason, it's an outdoor game, obviously there's that element to it. But in terms of the standings, this is a big game for the Islanders. And any game going up against a Metro opponent for them is important, because right now they're tied with the Devils. And, you take a look at the standings. Obviously Rangers, Carolina, not going anywhere. The Flyers are an interesting one. They're an
Yeah.
interesting one. I don't want to deviate here, but you look at you look at them recently. I mean, the Flyers have got destroyed by all good teams. I mean, the Bruins destroyed them last week. The Red Wings beat them. They're hot. Tampa killed them. Avalanche killed them. And then the Flyers are finding ways to be competitive against teams you should beat, like Ottawa, Columbus, so they've kind of stayed afloat by those teams. I'm not seeing that many big statement wins by Florida recently, but I don't want to deviate here. I think what's more important for the Islanders is what's going on in the Atlantic. I mean, you have Boston, you have Tampa, you have Florida playing strong as hell. You know what that means? That means Toronto is out of the equation in terms of the Atlantic. So that moves Toronto into a wild card spot. And then you now see Detroit is having an awesome, I think, year up to this point. They have a wild card spot, which forces the Devils out of a playoff spot and then puts the Islanders, tied with them. So the fact that Toronto is in a playoff spot, Detroit is ahead in a playoff spot, this is going to be a tough, little streak that the Islanders are going to have to go on if they want to be able to jump some of these teams. Not to mention that you still have Washington behind. You still have Pittsburgh behind. So all of these teams that the Islanders are going to be playing, in the second half of the season, all these teams have something to play for. So the Islanders are really not going to get, that many breaks in terms of the schedule. Now, on the nights they play with Montreal and Columbus, yeah, they're going to get a break. But they really do have a tough path, which makes these games against the Rangers so important for them. And I know that, this doesn't really apply typically towards a one, big matinee Sunday, day before President's Day, outdoor game.
Uh-huh.
But these are important points to consider for the Islanders. It's going to
Mhm.
be a tough uphill battle. And I think, quite frankly, a win in an outdoor game against the team that's up in the Metro right now, that could potentially be a big win for the Islanders that could propel them with momentum moving forward. They need the momentum coming into this game. And that's my point in my analysis here, is that this is a big game for them because this could be a big statement win and propel them, forward. They got a couple tough games themselves. Practically anybody they play is going to be tough. Not to say that they're bad or trash, but that's plays to the point that the competitiveness right now in the Metro and the wild card in the Eastern Conference is so strong. So, I mean, the Islanders want to take this for that reason, but of course, obviously, both teams, want to take the outdoor game, and I'm going to be dialed in, Chives. I can't wait. The excitement is going to be so real.
You put the punctuation point on anything I would have said about the Eastern Conference. Could applaud that. With that stated, do you know the last time the Rangers, they would be in a position right now, if it started today, to play the Toronto Maple Leafs or the Detroit Red Wings? Do you know the last time they played them in the playoffs?
When
Detroit, 1950 Stanley Cup Final, Game 7, Pete Babando overtime winning goal in a Game 7. That was the last time the New York Rangers not only played the Detroit Red Wings, but it was the last time until 1972 that they went 12 years without making the Cup Final. Then they went 72, 79, and then 94. Toronto Maple Leafs. This one, shout out my man Alan Creta, AP writer. He sat next to me in the box all the time. We throw it back and forth. I said, when was the last time the Rangers played the Maple Leafs? 1971. So it's been a couple generations since the Rangers played two original six teams, and I would think it would be pretty cool to see that. I gotta say, it would be pretty cool to see that. So, with that stated, those are the two teams right now. We'll see if any of the rivals can come out of the woodwork. But listen, the Rangers, no matter who the opponent is, they're going to have their work cut out for them. Conversation for down the road. Right now, the focus is an outdoor game, Steve-O.
Yeah, I think it's a little too early to start, licking my lips of who we want to play in the playoffs.
Yeah.
But it is an interesting question. It's fun to speculate. Why not? if you had a pick, and I think a lot's going to change again, given the fact that all these teams play so many games against each other. So one team wins, another team loses. You're putting a big lead, late in the season, when all these teams play each other. But as of right now, Toronto is not hot, and Detroit is. I mean, Detroit's
Hmm.
been, I think, 7-3 as of late. Detroit is very hot. But with that given said, I'm just throwing this out there. I think I'd rather play the Red Wings than the Maple Leafs in the playoffs. I think I would.
Someone else said that, and on the Empty Netters pod, Bobby Ryan didn't have a lot of good to say about the Rangers on his thoughts. Former senator that played with Mika Zibanejad. With that, though, I thought I wouldn't say poking holes in his thoughts of the Rangers, and maybe he's talking. I think he's really talking about on that specific clip about Stanley Cup. But I genuinely, right now, please, Lord, have my back on this one. I think the New Jersey Devils are struggling, and I think they're a team that, listen, they galvanized when they play the Rangers, and they got a lot of time with Hughes back finally in their lineup. But Timo Meyer's been a bust for them. Jack Hughes was injured for a long time. They got goaltending problems. The way the Rangers are getting up ice, I think it's exactly the issue that they needed to address. They don't worry me too much right now. Right now, this moment, February. Okay, so don't clip me on that. Islanders, I just don't think they have the talent the Rangers have. And I think that puts you over in a series. You see it with the Tampa Bay Lightning every year. Like, all right, they're not as good as they were last year, but they still beat teams because they have that. They have it. And then the Florida Panthers are a team. I don't think they'll play them. I don't think the Panthers are falling out of the top of the Atlantic. Flyers had me worried for a little bit. They might falter a little, they might fall into that wild card. But Toronto, man, I also don't think their goaltending is that strong. And I know a lot of people look to their offense, but I think if it comes down to outscoring opponents, if the Rangers are giving up a few goals, but Toronto's giving up more, team that's giving up more is going to lose every time. You can't win in the playoffs when it's a track meet. So I think the Rangers should focus. Obviously, their focus has been locking things down, and they've been better at that. Detroit's an interesting one because I don't think they have the top end talent, but I think when you play a team that's kind of,
They have
I
good
wouldn't
depth.
say like that. Yeah, they have good depth. Now, Steve-O, what makes you say the Red Wings? If you were to, you chose the Maple Leafs, but what would make you say the Red Wings would be a threat?
Listen. It's evident to me that Toronto is not playing well right now, but you've seen it earlier in the year in the games that we played against them. Toronto doesn't need good goaltending to beat you. They could rely on the offense, and we saw it in the first game of the year. The first game of the year we played against the Leafs, Austin Matthews could single-handedly beat you, and there's not a question that he could do that. And so seeing that, and I think the way our team is currently structured, let's say Kakko is not traded, and he stays with us. I like the way our team is structured, especially our bottom six. I like that matchup better with Detroit than I do with Toronto. And I just think that we fit better. I think Detroit is a team we could beat, and Toronto is a team we could beat. But I think they're going to figure it out. They are a team right now. For anyone listening that is following them, they are frustrated. If you watch them, you could see that. It's evidently clear, and I think they're going to wake up at some point. I kind of see that every year with Toronto. So I think that overall Detroit is a better matchup for us. I think we would match better with them. I told you earlier in the year that my two teams that I would be scared about, I would be scared with Carolina. I would be
Mhm.
scared with Florida. I don't see us playing Florida, at least in the earlier rounds of the playoffs. I do agree
I
with you
think
on
you
that
have
point,
to.
but you eventually going to have to go through Florida at some point.
Mhm.
And again, Carolina. Flyers are weird. They don't scare me, to be honest with you, as a fan. I really hope just like you made that point with the Devils, I'll make this point with the Flyers. They don't scare me. I don't think this one's gonna come back to bite me. I really don't. Knock on wood.
I
But
don't.
Flyers don't scare me, Chives. They just don't. I think just just watching them, they're just a weird team, man. To me, it's quite. Again, I'm not downplaying them, but it's just weird that they've been able to hang on for this long.
Yeah.
In my mind. But again, that only plays to your point that the Devils have not been playing well. So it'll be an
Yeah.
interesting.
It's two words, right? It's staying power. Like Detroit has some staying power. They've been able to stay in it, but the Flyers, it seems like all year it's been like, all right, when's the fall off? Detroit was like that to start the year, but I feel like they've established themselves now. But yeah, I agree with you on that. And like you said, teams, I don't think teams look at a team, and I feel this way too. If the Rangers had to play Toronto, I don't look at Toronto and say, you're going to have to go through them eventually. A team like Florida, yeah, and that comes down to some depth. Everybody hates Nick Cousins. He's part of that. Matty Tkachuk, I mean, he's the top player in the NHL since the new year began. Aside from, I would say, McKinnon Kucherov, but he has the most points since January 1st. So, yeah, listen, it's a little bit out, but it's the thick of the season now. The focus is, again, on those matchups that you got some intense matchups coming up, and they're not going to stop. It's going to start snowballing, and then before you know it, it's April. So right now we're saying that mid-February. I can't wait for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I'll throw another name right here before I wrap it up. Another team that I wouldn't want to play, Tampa. I'll leave it
I
at
said
that.
that. I actually have a clip of that. So I think I reposted it recently too for on our socials, because I'm telling you, man, they're just a team like I said before with the Rangers against some teams, like your star power comes through at some point. And then when it doesn't, it's like what happened last year with the Rangers. But when it does, it's something that sets you apart from other teams that don't have that. You can't manufacture talent. So that's something, yeah, to keep an eye on. That team especially. They've kept their name relevant, man. I mean, I hate to say it. Everyone on here knows I'm a Raider guy through and through, but it's like those darn. Actually, you know what? I don't even know if I can compare it to the Chiefs, because this is my theory. Like, they're not a dynasty. They won a single championship. They lost the next year. They weren't in the Super Bowl in 21, and then they won back to back. And people automatically, it's like dynasty. But that's for another time.
Yeah, the fact that they've been able to remain this consistent for the last 6 years and beyond, I think, has been, incredible. And the guy between the pipes for them, when that calendar flips April, he is dominant. So, but anyway, we're getting ahead of ourselves. We got our game this week, Sunday. Um, but listen, these conversations are going to be have to be had later on in the season, Chives. Listen, I remember last year we were talking about who we want to play. Do we want to play New Jersey? Do you want to blah, blah, blah? So listen, I don't want to remind us who we said we want to play. So listen, it puts it in perspective. Anything can happen here the rest of the year.
The entire year just felt like last year was like February. Oh, we're going to play the Devils. Oh, we're going to play the Devils. It was that was terrible. Like, there was no moving. It was like they were second and third in the division for like 3 months. At least we got it'll be a little more volatile. And I'm hoping it is, because that just makes for a more exciting experience.
Of course, it could be one of 5 teams right now. We don't know who it's going to be, but again, we know that our one team this Sunday will be the Islanders. With that being said, this will wrap us up here on this episode of Puck Talk CS. Follow us out on our socials at Puck Talk CS, our Twitter. We've been pumping away with our content, and of course, on our YouTube and website, you can check out all of our past episodes. We've had a lot of special guests, some big names on recently, and a lot of good listens. So go check that out, everybody. The Outdoor Winter Classic game is here for this Sunday. LGR, everybody. And always remember, it's just the luck of the puck.